Uber taxi drivers of Reddit, what is the weirdest conversation you overheard your passengers having? 2 Pikachu cosplayers planning to beat someone up. I drove a bus. But I think this still applies. Some girl was talking on the phone about a guy she was with and how he kept putting it in the wrong hole and she didn't know if he was lying to her about it being an accident. The first time I ever used Uber, I was in St. Louis on vacation with my wife. We have never been there and weren't really familiar with the city. Anyways, we are driving with this guy who I think was from the Middle East heading into downtown when we saw the arch. We both started talking about it and were excited that we were so close. The Uber driver starts telling us facts on the arch. The arch was constructed in France and delivered here as a token of friendship in 1844. I look at my wife with a questioned look and he continues. A lot of people don't know that. That is why it faces exactly east towards the Statue of Liberty. Now we both know that this guy's completely full of shit. We let him continue because, well, it was fun. It's amazing that when it first came over here, the elevator was built inside of it and it was hand driven by 15 men at a time by using a pulley system. We still have no idea if this guy was ducking with us or if he actually believed what someone once told him. Me and a friend play this game that whenever we get a taxi we have the most ridiculous conversations ever, in as serious a tone as possible. Favorites are comments like, I know he's my brother, but he's also the father of my child. And if my mum can be in a committed relationship with him for years then so can I, and I still don't think it counts as murder. He was really annoying. And it's not like anyone could ever find the body. I think I just did the world a favor. There's no win-win for the Uber driver in this case. If they say something then they could get fired for discrimination. If they don't say something then it's assumed they are perfectly fine with the Game of Thrones lovemaking. It's the perfect situation. I was the Uber passenger and the driver scooped me and a friend up. We were riding and he said, sorry guys, I'm in a conference call, and had a head price in. We were like, no problem man, and we just talked to ourselves, but he would chime in and chat with us. Toward the end of the ride he say, sorry I have to chime into the meeting. Now I was thinking he would say some business stuff like 4th QTR projections are down or something. He say, alright everyone, we need to calm down, this isn't the first time someone has killed themselves in our organization. It's a shame what happened to Frank, but we need to get out in front of this and put our PR team on this. I just looked at my friend like WTF, and then the dude dripped us off. I Ubered a few times for extra money. I picked this girl up outside a frat house around 10:30 on a Friday. She got in the car and said to me, OMG you're my savior, I just had to get out of there. Soon after she gets a call and it goes like this. OMG yeah, when he told me I freaked out and just had to leave. I mean, it's curable so it's fine, but I have to tell so and so, comma. Girl talked about getting an STD on the phone while in my front seat. I wasn't the driver, but the passenger. I got in the taxi I ordered from the train station to my house, and there was a small carnival we drove past. The taxi driver and I had been chatting, the usual small talk, when he is working to etc. And suddenly we passed this carnival and the guy started talking about how they were shutting the carnival down as 2 7-year-olds had been kidnapped the day before, and the police had no leads, and how it's horrific to think that still happens. And he doesn't even want to think of the poor girls. Got home and looked into it. None of this happened. Nor had it ever in the town's history. Passenger, not a driver. The best taxi ride I ever got was from a Sikh driver. From San Francisco to SFO airport, about a 15-minute ride. It was about 5 o'clock in the morning. And the guy was an absolute scream, like a stand-up comic, almost Robin Williams pace. Funny observations on traffic. Flying. Families. I was with my wife and kids. etc. I wish I'd been able to record it. I wondered at first if he was on drugs, but I don't think Sikhs do that. Best ride ever. I'm a public bus driver in a college town. I had a student shouting across the bus that everyone needs to get their nipples pierced because it will complete their life. Edit, I'd just like to clarify that it was a female student. I was on my way to pick someone up when I get a text message from them saying I'll give you head for a free ride. It was a guy. I am also a guy. They cancelled shortly after. Well, my pickup calls me and says her mom wants to meet me first before she'll let her daughter get in with a stranger. So then I actually have to get out and introduce myself. Convince her I'm not going to grape and murder her daughter. After about 2 minutes of me turning on the charm, it turns into an almost first date where you meet the girl's parents. The mom loved me, gave me a cheek kiss and sent us off. Then me and the daughter flirted all the way to the club she was getting dropped off at. She gave me a kiss on the cheek too. So that's it. Just a slightly strange, wholesome, fun encounter. I remember a group of very young teenage girls talking about their hookups and boyfriends. They had to be barely 14 and they were talking about some really nasty stuff. They may have been hamming it up for you. Doubt. Kids these days, man. Whenever I happen to forget my headphones or the music stops and I hear what those young kids talk about, I would just think, Jesus Christ, kiddos. When I was your age just 9 years ago, I played with playable and children's toys. Lift line. 2 girls, one trying to convince the other to sleep with her single dad as a favor to her. Me and the driver just looked at each other. Wait, so you were part of their ride or just hanging with the driver? Lift line cheaper but might pick up passengers. They got picked up. I was in the front seat as they discussed this. Shared a cab ride with 2 women in their 20s. Was getting late. Wanted to get a cab home but was a bit pricey after midnight. Agreed with 2 strangers that's wet split the cost. Their entire conversation for 30 minutes was yeah followed by yeah, and they weren't even drunk or on any drugs I could smell or tell from their physical signs. They were Australian. If that helps. 2 drunk dudes I picked up coming out of a San Antonio Spurs game. Nice enough guys. I even stopped and went through the Whataburger drive-thru for them. After the initial chit chat they settled in and started talking random stuff. Then they start talking about one of their bachelor parties which sounded like had happened pretty recently. Normal drunk bro type talk about the strippers and drinking and how their buddy brought way too much blow. Say what now? Then the story gets pretty graphic with the bachelor talking about blowing coke off the strippers and the strippers blowing coke off of him and then blowing him and then having a threesome. Then he starts talking about how he's been ducking the stripper on the side ever since the bachelor party, but how after he gets married he's totally going to straighten up. I'm pretty sure they had totally forgotten that I was even there until I pulled up at their apartment to drop them off. Got a $20 tip and a chocolate milkshake from Whataburger. I'm not a Uber driver, but one started to talk to me about mail order brides and what I thought about them. Turns out he married a mail order bride. Yesterday I was in an Uber. It started with normal small talk. It ended with me smelling a 1/8 of an ounce of weed and finding a new dealer. Not the weirdest but caught me off guard. Definitely. Couple days ago I overheard a little kid asking his mom if he could come along with her to babysit and she replied no, they don't trust you, and he goes what? I've only accidentally held a baby once. I tried not to laugh. In all seriousness it was just unexpected. Buddy of mine drove Uber for a couple years. Good looking woman in a slim black dress. Seemed relatively normal on a Saturday night. After talking for a bit, she alludes in a not so subtle manner that she's an escort. She likes the music he plays. He's a nice guy. Makes her laugh. She ends up offering him $100 cash per ride if he is willing to be her exclusive pickup and drop off guy when she sees clients. Super tempting. Also pretty illegal. He almost said yes, but turned it down. Later he read the Denver PD has been actively tracking Uber Lyft drivers who've been making arrangements with pimps, prostitutes, and drug dealers. Way easier to avoid suspicion when you're just the passenger. Edit, mobile auto predict fix. Passenger. But my mom and I had a conversation about her job once that resulted in us telling the Uber guy about the time she hit a shark in the face with a bag full of fish. I think that's his answer to this question. Coming home from a party. Late and very drunk. I ordered an Uber for myself and my 2 brothers. I was in the front and my dearest bros in the backseat began discussing very intricate nature of each other's 6 lives. I just watched the poor driver's eyes slowly widen and knuckles go white. But the time they got to lubricants, this dude's eyeballs were about to pop out of his head. My house was first. And they kept going for another 10 minutes. That's how I lost my perfect 5-star rating. I'm not the driver, but once me and a couple of friends were in a taxi after drinking pretty heavily and somehow we ended up having a full-blown ducking argument over whether 9/11 was an inside job or not. Driver had to calm us down. It's so obvious, isn't it? George Bush personally knocked down both towers with a sledgehammer after setting up his projector for the airplane images. It explains why it took so long for the second tower to fall. I once picked up the owner of the company I was driving for along with a friend of theirs. Very late night. Very drunk. We stopped to get them some gyros for the ride home, which was about a half an hour. The gyros were devoured in about 2 minutes, which left plenty of time for the full-on 6 that went on for the rest of the ride home. The smell of gyros and lady on lady 6 for 25 minutes was interesting. Not a driver but a passenger. My girlfriend and I were getting dropped off at Disney World and were having the usual small talk. The driver mentioned he was from Cuba and I said I'm part Cuban. That's where it all took off. He proceeded to tell me all about his religion. I'm still not sure what it was. But my family is Catholic and I think he was somewhere in that ballpark. He said he was a sorcerer and showed off all his dragon rings and talked about the mystical powers of some saint. He said his ex-wife was a voodoo witch and did all kinds of weird shit and they had to get divorced. He played some kind of chant sounding thing from his phone, but I don't speak Spanish so I didn't know what it was. Then he wished us a good time at Disney and we were on our way. Not in a taxi per se. But I was walking past a bus stop once. And overheard one guy say to another. And that's when I realized my oven was trying to kill me. That's the only part of the conversation I heard. I wish I knew the story behind it. When I did Uber, I overheard 2 girls talking about whether or not they were going to poke holes in their BS condoms. I got pretty pissed. Kinda backward, but one time an Uber driver, male, asked me, also male, if I'd ever seen the movie Deliverance while driving me to a fairly secluded wooded area. For those who don't know, Deliverance is a movie where some dudes go into the woods and one of them gets raped by some hillbillies. I had the opposite experience. Told the cab driver I was studying to become a chemist. He said he knew some guys who produced coke. And I could maybe get a job with them. I'm still 50/50 on whether he was serious. I was the passenger in this case. My boyfriend and I got picked up from the train station. When the lady asked where we came from, we told her about our trip. How I love Stephen King and my boyfriend planned out an awesome creepy trip for my birthday, staying at the Stanley Hotel in room 217. We told her some of the creepy things we saw and things that happened. And the lady told us that the paranormal voodoo stuff is real. She used voodoo to heal her ex-husband. I didn't know what I got myself into. He was a bad guy. I don't regret it. But 2 weeks after I stabbed his doll in the heart, he died from a heart attack. He was a perfectly healthy guy. I've never touched that stuff again. It was the perfect ending to a creepy trip. Picked up a lady of the night downtown Minneapolis at 3 AM. She gets in the car and is on her phone. I start the trip and see that she's going to Mankato. For those unfamiliar with MN, that's about an hour and a half southeast of the major metropolitan area. Ride starts out fairly normal as she isn't paying attention to me or what I'm doing. About 20 minutes in, she starts raising her voice at the person on the other end of the call. From what I can gather, it is her pimp. He is furious with her for not bailing another girl out of jail who got caught in a prostitution sting the night before. Really? He just wants to bring her back in the same Uber ride to Mankato because he didn't want to pay for 2 trips. Her response almost made me piss my pants with laughter. That hoe didn't pay me back the bail money from last time. She said not taking payment for ducking my nephew was good enough.